I've recently came across this website and seen that it is mostly similar with 80% of all the AI generated websites today. And that got me thinking, is it harder or is it more difficult for new designers to get into web design these days, as AI slop is just everywhere and as everybody's just looking to use AI instead of paying efficient and actually good designers? Now, we're going to be taking this series, a mini course of sorts, and we're just going to be redesigning this whole website that you see here. Now, this won't be something that I'm gonna go too much structural on. Like, I'm not gonna be using variables and stuff like that. I'm just gonna be creating a quick new tutorial series where we are just gonna be redesigning this Mint MVP website here. Let's actually rename this to Mint MVP. And yeah, let's start directly here with the desktop. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get this design here for the logo. And instead of that, we're going to be using a different sort of design here. We're just going to be using, first, let's rename this to be landing desktop. And I'm just created, this is for later. I just created uh, here this quick logo that you see here that we're going to be using. It was derived from the inner parts of this logo where there is just a simple leaf. And we're just going to be redesigning all of our websites starting from this logo right here. If you want to see a logo design course in the future, please let me know. But for now, we're just going to be sticking to the web design part. So let's start by saying Mint MVP. Great. So one thing you see that is lacking here is that there isn't really a clear name for the website, which is unfortunate because its navigation is not too horrible, but this part really kills it off for me. You always need to have a clear name for your websites provided in your navigation since the user needs to know where they are on the web at all times. Great. So if we say that, how is this being structured? Now, this is Helvetica, the font. It's bold and 16 pixels. Now, most websites actually use Inter, which is a very nice font, but it is being killed. It is being overused to death. So we're just going to be using Helvetica, and we can actually just do this, just provide a condensed letter spacing, which I really like. Great, so this is 32 pixels and 20 pixels wide. So now that we have this, by the way, I will be publishing this file. I'm going to be sharing this file. So you can just grab it from the description down below if you want to experiment with it. Today we're going to be actually designing just the navigation. Next time we're going to be continuing with the hero section. Then we're going to be trying to continue with the rest of the website and learn a thing or two about how to make your website stand out and just be different from AI and get hireable actually. Great. So let's continue. I'm going to take this. I'm going to put it in frame. I'm going to call it identity. Align it to the bottom and 2 pixel gap. The reason I made it 2 pixels is because I want this leaf to be sort of arching here over the top of the text. Great. Okay. So we have our identity. Let's continue here with our nav links. Now, something they didn't do really well here is provide a home navigation. You always need that, in my opinion, because again, the user needs to know where they are on the page. So if you're on the home page, you need a homepage indicator and an easy way to return to home. Before moving on, though, I would actually just use the default layer spacing. I've decided it's a bit too complicated currently, and I just want to simplify it. Great, so we're going to need like 4 or 5 links. We're just going to start with home. This home should be just regular. It should be 14 pixels. And we don't really want there to be full black here. We want the links to be sort of grayish here. The reason for this being that if everything is black, there isn't really good visual hierarchy, and you don't really get what you want to see initially. Since the home page is actually the currently selected page, I'm gonna make it black, and the rest of the links, like the about link and the FAQs link, also the pricing, and here they are calling it examples, but I think the best way of presenting this is as showcases or showcase. Now you see how we made only the home page black, meaning it stands out and it has a better visual hierarchy, and everything is not really hard to see, and it's not hard on the eyes. Great, so we're just going to take everything here, Shift A to put it inside of a frame, put it side by side, the width should be hot content, and the gap should be simply 40 pixels. So where are these numbers coming from? 40 pixels. Where does this come from? I have a rule that all of your numbers should be a multiple of either 6 or 8. Sometimes people call it the multiples of 4 rule, or the multiples of 6 rule. I call it just either 6 or 8. 4, 6, 8 actually, since there are some diversities. Obviously 40 is a multiple of 8, so we're going to be having it here. Great, so we're going to name this links and center it here. Obviously it doesn't need centering, but we're just going to do that anyway, and just put it right here, and we're just going to continue. So what is the third part that we need? The third part that we need is actually the call to actions. Here you can see a call to action being provided on the hero section, which is very good, but we also need a call to action on the nav bar. The reason for that is for websites like this, like here for example, this is a website for um if you can see, it's MVP creator, so there are SaaS websites. So most of the time you actually need to log in or sign up. So in case of that, you really need a login and a sign up buttons. So we're just going to be creating those. I'm going to go here, login. Again, we're going to go 16 and bold. The reason we go 16 and bold for this one, 16 and bold for this one, but only go regular and 14 pixels for the links, the nav links, is because simply you want there to be a difference in visual hierarchy. Visual hierarchy is the visual progress in which users will see your elements. So elements with high visual hierarchy will be seen first, and elements with low visual hierarchy will be seen last. And that is what we want to focus on. Obviously, we want the user to see the call to actions, which is the primary part of the navbar first. So the login, the sign up buttons will have higher visual hierarchy than just the regular links. Great, so 16 pixels on bold. We're just gonna make it into a frame here. I'm gonna call this secondary, just because this is the secondary call to action. The primary call to action would be the one to sign up, because you want users to sign up as much as possible, since it will benefit the actual business. Okay, great. We're just going to go here and go with 30, actually 16, 32, 0 gap. I'm going to describe these numbers or talk about them a bit here. I also made the fill whites. We're going to see why in a moment. And if we just apply a stroke here, you can see that there is a bit of a difference here, right? There is 32 pixels on the left and right, and 16 on the top and bottom, almost half. Actually, not even almost, just it's half the value, and that's because that is a rule of buttons. You want your buttons to be more wide than they are tall. You want there to be more padding on the left and right axis, or then on the x-axis, or then the y-axis. So that's a rule you want to follow. That's because people recognize this as a button. But if this was, for example, just 16 by 16, it might not be as obvious that this is a button. But this is very obvious. Great, so we're just going to take the stroke here, and since the border isn't really a high visual hierarchy element, I'm just going to take it and reduce it very much here, to the point where it's not really too visible, but it is still there and it still shows separation. Great, I'm gonna make a corner radius of 999, just making it fully rounded. And let's just duplicate this. This time I'm gonna call this primary call to action. And let's just go here and change this to sign up. Very nice. We are progressing very well here. Now, here for the sign up button, I'm just going to make one big change. I'm going to apply the orange color, which is our brand color here. One thing you notice in AI websites is that they don't have a brand color. Here we see this blue, and if we scroll down, we see this purple. Most of the time, this purple is in gradient form, and you see this in many websites because AI actually just took this style from the Tailwind CSS landing page. It's a very long story, but there isn't really a true branding here. Sorry, there isn't really a true branding, and if we want to stand out, we want to create something that is unique, and I think using the orange color was something that will make this stand out really good. So that's the reason I used it. And obviously I'm just going to change this to be white. Obviously Figma says this doesn't contrast well, but I disagree here. I think Figma contrast checker sometimes glitches, or I don't know, but this is very obvious that if this orange contrasts well on the white should contrast well on the orange. It is very obvious that there is clear separation. This is very contrasting. So we don't need to worry about that. And we have our two call to actions. Now at this point, we can do something more interesting, right? So we can take the sign up button, experiment with different strokes. Something that I used to do is just make this lighter and just do something like this. You can do many things with it, but what I'm trying to do here is give you a foundation. I'm not going to go super complicated. I'm just going to show you very minimal and very basic principles of web design, very quick tips and tricks in this series, so that you can build your own websites and confidently say, I am better than AI. So that's my goal for this website, for this series. Obviously, we're going to call this the CTAs. So I'm intentionally making this uh, pretty simple. Uh, great. So let's take this one and hot content. Very nice. And 16 pixel gap. And we're just going to take this, put it on the other side. Very nice. We have all of our elements that are required for the navbar. We can just go to the desktop here and apply layout grid columns. Count will be 12. So that we have 12 columns here, and we can just take out our rulers and just go in and have one ruler here. Hopefully this is clear. We just want to have equal spacing from the left side and the right side. And we have another ruler here. Great. And we can just remove this. So now we have equal spacing on this side and this side. So we can just simply take this and just drag it in. Obviously, we want to make it central lined, and we want to make the gap also here and take this in here. So you can see now that this is centered, right? Very nice. So we can continue at this point. You can rename this nav bar, and let's actually just hide this. Actually, let's hide the rulers. Shift R on your keyboard, center it, and put it at the top. Now this is pretty much done. Now but we just have to do some things here. One thing I want to do is I want to have a border separating. Now you can see that they did something unique here actually, which is using glassmorphic effects on the background to make a difference. That's actually pretty nice. That's a good effect. But I think there would be a better way of doing this, which is simply using a stroke. You can't really go much wrong with that. So I'm just going to take this, make this fixed width. That's very important, and just center it on and put it at the top here. The new frame would be called the navbar, and the inner one would be called the main. So we need this frame in order to apply our stroke. This is a very simple concept. If you have the stroke on this first first body here, if you have the stroke here, you can see the stroke only goes as much as the actual content here, right? But we want the content to be uh, centered at 1236 pixels, right? So how do we actually achieve that? We can do this. We can apply our stroke here, and you can see if we place this centrally, and if we take out our rulers again, you can see the inner content is actually centered perfectly, but the outer content actually extends, so we can have a border extending the full width of the screen. Great. So let's disable that, and actually let's work on this border a bit. One thing we want is we want it to be only on the bottom, and also we want to be consistent. Consistency is key. Since we already had this color here for our border on the logo, on the login button here, it is very important that you do the same here because consistency is very important. You can see this website, right? So there isn't really much consistency. You can see gradients here for cards, but gradients here have a completely different style. There is no gradient here. There is no gradient here. This is a darker card. This is a lighter card. There is no resemblance of consistency, and that's one thing that AI still lacks to this date in terms of consistency. They have the same style, but it's not consistent enough when you look at it up close. So we have now a consistent bar here with the color, and we want to finish off with doing small tweaks here. First of all, let's remove the padding and put 16 padding on the top and bottom just to separate it from the top and give it breathing room in terms of white space, right? Finally, we want to go here and we want to give this a different color. Now, there are so many options you can take, right? You can just make this white and make it match the background. You can go with your brand color, which is this orange. You can do so many things with it. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select this and I'm going to go with pink, right? So I'm going to go pink, and from pink, I'm going to go, okay, not actually pink. I'm going to go to the brand here, the brand color, and I'm just going to go very dark, very dark. So what this does is it actually retains the brand color, but it actually just creates enough separation so that this stands out. So if we look at it in terms of here, you can see it is contrasting enough. Great. So we would have to change up this part. Actually, if we have a background color, here we don't even need the stroke. We can just remove it. Now let's go in and just change the colors here. Obviously, this works pretty nicely, but I'm going to make this text white. Also, you can actually just make this white as well, but I'm just going to keep it because it is contrasting enough and it looks pretty good. I'm gonna go here now and I'm gonna first of all make this full white since I want to make it fully visible, and I'm just gonna make these the orange color, but I don't intend on them being orange. I can't really go gray because the gray doesn't work well on a color background. So what I can do here is I can go something like this. So it's not fully white. You can see it's not fully white here, but it is something that is branching out from the primary background color. So that's the sort of gray you want to go with in this sort of situations, a gray that is dependent on the background color. Now you can see that the home button is still white and it still stands out more because white on this color contrasts much more from orange on this color. So we still have that going for us. I want to go to the sign up button here, which is very perfect and nothing really needs to be changed. But the login button here, we don't really need a stroke. And I don't really want it to be white at this point. I don't want the login button to take too much of the visual hierarchy. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make the text white, and I'm going to make the fill uh, this color. So you can see now it's not visible. The background is not visible, but that's intentional. We're just gonna make this just lighter, a bit lighter here. We can go to the color itself and go lighter. Okay, is that visible enough is the question, and I don't think so. We can go even more lighter or change up the colors a bit here. Obviously, we can go like this, but perhaps we can go, no, that's not, doesn't work well here. We can still go whites. That's not off the tail, but I want to explore other color schemes first before deciding on whites. The problem here is it is the same as the sign up button in terms of the shade of color. So I think white would be the best option. And we can just go with the background color as the text color here. And that looks very nice. I really like it. Uh, Great. So is there anything missing from the navbar that we are not, but that we are yet to consider here? Uh, I think it's a solid navbar here. Maybe this stands out a bit too much. So we can actually just go like this. Mm, Maybe. Okay, let's just keep it. I really like this solid enough part. Um, what should we add next? I think at its current state here, it's a very complete nav bar. Okay, yeah. So I think that will be our nav bar going forward in the design. And we're just going to be adding probably we might be adding a thing or two to the nav bar, but I think at its current point, it's very complete and it looks very nice. So when you compare it with this navbar, it really has much more of a personality and much more of a brand emphasis. The reason for that is obviously mostly because of the color selection, but also a premium fonts like Helvetica instead of just Inter. Also, no cheap icons. Here instead we have good visual hierarchy in terms of our uh, links here. Also, there are strong call to actions here as the login and sign up buttons. So that's very nice. I think next time I'm going to continue here with the hero sections. If you have any thoughts on the series so far, please comment them down below in the description. I'm going to try to have this current Figma file in the description for you down to copy and just play around with, or just learn from it and do whatever you want with it probably. Okay, great. I think that's it. Thanks for watching. We're going to be continuing very soon on the design. Till next time, goodbye.